Welcome to this week's What's for Dinner video. My name is Ashley. I'm going to be showing you 3 different meals I made this past week. I don't always follow recipes exactly, but if you're interested, I've linked some similar recipes down below. The first dinner I'm going to be showing you, I made some homemade chili. This is my first time making chili and this turned out absolutely amazing and I cannot wait to make this again. So I am starting out with my ground beef. I believe this is about 1.5 pounds of ground beef. I'm just going to cook this up in a pot. This is where I'm going to be making my chili. I'm just going to break this up and cook it until it's nice and brown. So once the ground beef was cooked, I just drained out the excess oil and then I took a paper towel and dabbed as much oil that I could get out. That is one little trick that I've learned. So next I'm going to add in my chopped up onion. I'm just going to saute that around in the ground beef. I did watch a couple videos on how to make homemade chili and they did say to add each ingredient one at a time so the flavors really do come out. So I'm just going to cook the onions down a little bit, and once the onion flavor really starts to come out, I'm going to add in my seasonings and spices. I'm adding some onion powder, some garlic powder, cumin, chili powder, and some paprika. I definitely don't have exact measurements, but I am going pretty heavy on the seasonings because this will be a nice big pot of chili. So again, I'm just going to stir all these seasonings around, mix it into the meat, let these cook so these flavors do come out as well. I'm also adding a little bit of garlic salt. You can also add salt at the end once you see how everything tastes. So next I'm going to add in a little bit of crushed up tomatoes in paste. I'm really not going to add too much tomato to this because I don't love the tomato flavor. So I'm just going to stir that tomato into the meat, let that cook as well. So next I'm going to add in my pinto beans. I decided to go with pinto beans. I don't really know why, but I just did. I love beans in chili, so I will end up adding this whole can. So I'm just going to stir all the beans into the meat, make sure that it is all kind of well combined. So next I'm going to add in my liquid. I am adding a couple cups of water and then I'm going to use some seasoning and bouillon to make that chicken broth. I feel like you definitely can add as much water as you'd like. I personally like my chili more thick rather than runny and soupy. So next I'm going to add in a little bit of brown sugar. I don't know why I'm doing it like this. I feel like I was really scared of adding too much sugar, so I tried to be careful. So I did add a little bit more of those crushed up tomatoes. So I'm just going to mix this all together. This is kind of where you start to taste everything and add whatever else you need. So I'm adding a little bit more chili powder. So next I'm adding some cornstarch slurry. This is like my #1 trick for soups or anything I make with liquid because I personally like things more thick rather than liquidy. Cornstarch slurry is just equal parts cold water and cornstarch, and it works as a great thickener. So next is to let everything cook together and simmer. I let this simmer for about 2 hours on super low just so everything becomes nice and flavorful. So you cannot have chili without cornbread. So when we were close to eating, I made some cornbread. I just made the Jiffy cornbread. Super easy, but super good. So I'm just going to mix everything together, and then I have a aluminum 8x8 pan that I'm going to cook this in. I am a huge fan of cornbread and I really cannot wait to have this meal again. So this is how everything looked right before we ate. The chili was done and nice and thick and the cornbread just came out. I topped this with some cheddar cheese, some sour cream, and some green onion. The next dinner I'm going to be showing you, I made a cheesy chicken rigatoni bake. So I am starting off with my chicken breast. I'm going to just use one large chicken breast that I had. I'm just going to butterfly it in half, that way it's easier to cut. Just going to cut these into strips and then into small bite-sized pieces. So next I'm going to work on seasoning the chicken. I'm going to use some Tony's Creole seasoning, some paprika for color, and some onion powder. So I'm just going to give everything a nice toss, make sure it's all well combined and each piece of chicken is seasoned. So next I'm going to work on cooking up the chicken. I just had a little bit of oil heating up in this pan. I'm going to cook the chicken until it is all the way cooked through. At the same time, I do have a pot of water boiling, getting ready for the noodles. So once the chicken is done cooking, I'm going to remove it to a clean bowl and then get started working on the sauce. So for the sauce, we're doing like a cheesy Alfredo. I'm just going to melt half a stick of butter in the pan, in the same pan that I cooked the chicken. That way we have all those flavors. I don't have actual minced garlic at the moment, so I'm using some garlic powder and some onion powder in the butter to kind of flavor things up. So next I'm going to add in my heavy whipping cream. Again, I don't have any measurements. I kind of just eyeball and decide with how much pasta that I'm making, and then I'm going to add in some sour cream. Because this is going in the oven, I want to be able to keep things nice and creamy. So this already has a good amount of flavor because of the garlic and the onion powder. Just going to add a little bit of the Tony's seasoning, some parsley, and some pepper. Once this has become nice and hot, I'm going to add in some cheese. I'm just adding in some shredded Monterey Jack cheese, mixing that around until it's all melted. So next we're going to combine everything. I'm going to add in the half a box of rigatoni noodles that I drained, and then I'm going to add in all of our chicken. So the last step is to assemble this and throw it into the oven. So in a small baking dish, I'm just going to spray with a little bit of olive oil spray and throw this on in. So once this is all spread out evenly and mixed together, I'm going to put some more Monterey Jack cheese on top, and then this will go in the oven at 375 until it is nice and brown. So I'm just going to sprinkle some parsley flakes on top and some more of that Tony's seasoning. This is how everything looked when it was done. I am definitely a sucker for some chicken pasta. The last dinner I'm going to be showing you, I made some Sriracha ginger honey chicken with white rice, green beans, and pot stickers. So I'm actually starting off with the sauce so I can get that made. I'm using some soy sauce, some sriracha, lots of honey, and some ginger. So I'm just going to mix that all together. I'm also going to add some water. This is what kind of makes the sauce a lot more, and then this will kind of reduce down when you cook it. This is something you can definitely taste as you go, and then I'm going to add in a couple spoonfuls of cornstarch. This is just going to help thicken the sauce when I cook it. So once that's done, I'm just going to cover it and stick it in the fridge, and then I'm going to work on the chicken. At the same time, I do have 1 cup of white rice cooking in some boiling water. So I'm just going to take my chicken breasts and chop them up into small bite-sized pieces, just like the last recipe. And then I'm going to let the chicken kind of marinate in some soy sauce. This, I think, adds a lot of good flavor to the chicken. So next, I'm going to work on seasoning my green beans. I'm going to spray with a little bit of olive oil spray. Then I'm going to use some garlic salt and some Italian seasoning. Roasting vegetables is by far the easiest way to cook vegetables. I will never not do this. So next we are going to fry each piece of chicken. I just covered these in some cornstarch to add some nice coating, and I'm just going to let these cook in the oil till they are nice and brown in my desired texture. So once the chicken was done, I just scooped them up with this slotted spoon and placed them on a drying rack to finish cooling and dripping off the excess oil. I just did this a couple times in batches. So once the chicken was done cooking and is now cooling, I got started on cooking up the sauce in this pan. So I'm just going to toss all of the sauce in this pan, cook it up until it's nice and thick, and then I will add in my chicken. So lastly, I'm just going to add a little bit more soy sauce into the sauce. Wanted it a little bit more salty. Next, I'm going to throw in my chicken once it is this like syrupy sauce. So I'm just going to toss all of the chicken in the sauce, make sure each piece is nice and coated, and this is basically ready to serve. This is how everything looked when it was done. I just topped the chicken with a little bit of green onions. This was definitely so good. I love chicken and rice. Thank you so much for watching this week's What's for Dinner video. Make sure you come back next week for another one.